had some ankle issues in the past. It doesn't sound like this is serious. I think he actually had some limited practice already today. So they're expecting that he's going to be available. I just don't know if we're going to see him get the bulk of the carries this weekend.
Well, he's already started losing the bulk of the carries over the past few weeks anyway. His snap count has consistently gone down each week, and last week was no different. Maybe part of that was due to the injury during the game, but the fact of the matter is, and this apparently was right out of Saints beat writer camp, Kendrick Miller is looked at as the best running back on that Saints roster right now. Maybe Alvin Kamara gets traded somewhere. And that, if I'm a fantasy owner of Alvin Kamara, that's kind of what I'm hoping for. See, the problem is, I know he had 6 targets this past week, but the problem is he's not consistently being involved in the pass game like we thought he would be. When you looked at the Saints, you're like, all right, yeah, Chris Olave's going to get his targets. And then you figure Alvin Kamara was just going to be a safety blanket. He hasn't been an efficient runner for years now. That's not what we were counting on. But if he's not going to be getting 7, 8 targets every single game like we're used to Alvin Kamara fashion being, well, his fantasy value takes a tremendous hit. And that's what we're seeing now, especially now Kendrick Miller has been efficient with the opportunities he has been given. So Alvin Kamara, to me, right now is no more than an RB3. And I would actually hope you had other options to be able to pivot to, because there's not much upside that's coming with him at the moment. Miles Sanders, knee and ankle issue. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, I don't think he actually practiced today, according to most of the recent reports. It sounds like he was a DNP. And they were saying earlier in the week that there's a good chance he's probably not going to be ready. He might be a true game time decision, depending on what he can do as the week kind of winds down. So not good news if you can't get on the practice field on Thursday with 2 body parts injured. And then Friday usually just kind of being a light practice walkthrough day. So I don't think we're going to see him. He's probably going to have a questionable tag, but he could be ruled out kind of last minute right before kickoff.
Yeah, so if he's out, Jaden Blue takes his spot, and Javonte Williams continues to being the bell cow that he is. A top 5 running back in fantasy, Javonte Williams. Who'd have thunk it? Let's talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't think we're too concerned here, but whenever a player like this, who's number 2 wide receiver in fantasy football, cops up, I feel like we got to mention it.
Yeah, he's been banged up a little bit over the years, but this doesn't sound like it's anything serious. He's trending toward playing. I think he might have been limited a little bit in practice, but it doesn't sound like it's a major issue. We should see him Sunday.
That's good news. Like I said, number 2 guy, Puka Nacua. We need this guy out there, especially in a matchup this week against Kansas City Chiefs. All right, so CeeDee Lamb, ankle. What's the update here? Are we closer to getting this guy back or what?
I think so. I'm still not certain it's going to be this week. It may be an additional week. I know he was doing some stuff in practice late last week. It was more on the side, kind of doing his own thing, then took another day or 2 off after that. So it sounds like he's kind of working his way back slowly. Again, this is one of those things, until he can get a full practice in, I'm not so sure he's going to be ready, though.
Talk about a guy who probably should have just went on IR. Like, I mean, right. I think we're coming up on 4 weeks now. Like, come on.
Almost, yeah.
Just kept our hopes up for absolutely no reason. In his absence, George Pickens continues to be the wide receiver 1. And so that's still a thing. And then Kevontae Turpin, who I'll have you talk about in a second, but with him also looking like he's going to be out this week. Jalen Tolbert played more snaps, but Ryan Flournoy, he was the second guy as far as the wide receivers are concerned. So it's George Pickens, it's Jake Ferguson. And because they're throwing the ball and Dak Prescott is playing as well as he is right now, Ryan Flournoy, especially in deeper leagues, he's got a shot to be a legitimate pickup. So don't overlook him. But talk about Kevontae Turpin's foot issue.
Yeah, not exactly sure what the nature of this injury is. It sounds like it's a sprain. It doesn't sound optimistic that he's going to be good to go. I don't think he's actually practiced at all this weekend. That's despite some updates in some of the injury reports later today. So I think that it's tentative at best that we'll see him this weekend.
Yeah, from the reports that I was seeing, it sounded like the game plan was for him to miss this week and potentially return next week. That's a lot of the reports that I was seeing myself. Mike Evans, is he ever going to come back?
Well, so there's another guy that probably should have just gone straight to IR. They should have pulled the trigger on that right away. I mean, he's an older player, skill position, hamstring issues over the years, no different this year. It doesn't sound like he's going to be ready. You got Egbuka, the rookie, playing out of his mind. Godwin's healthy. I don't see any need to rush him back, so I don't think we're going to see him again.
I mean, he's just. So here's what's annoying, and for those who played sleeper formats, you understand this pain. Instead of like every other format, when a player's out, you can put them on your IR spot and open up a roster spot. But in sleeper, no. They have to actually be on IR to go on IR, and you're just holding these guys who have been out, and they're just clogging up your roster, and it's insane because you can't drop Mike Evans, but you're left here with your thumb twiddling around because you can't. There's nothing you can do. It's driving me crazy. Just put him on IR. What's the problem? You said it, Brian. Emeka Egbuka is a top 5 fantasy wide receiver. Chris Godwin's more of a wide receiver 3. So he got the heavy target share the first week he came back. It came down a little bit the second week. You can tell he doesn't quite have his legs under him. And he really shouldn't have expected him to anyway, but he is still a featured part of the offense, which is why I don't have him lower than a wide receiver 3 tier type player. But I wouldn't expect too much upside against San Francisco this week. Here's another one I'm still waiting to get some kind of stupid update on. Terry McLaurin. Like what? Like, can someone get me like a little drop-in beeper on these people? Because I feel like I'm getting no information this season.
No, actually, I think this is actually good news with him.
Oh, okay.
It sounds like he's actually ramped up some of his activity, and could be getting ready. I don't know if he practiced yesterday. I think he might have been limited today, but it sounds like he is slowly improving. I just don't think we're going to see him this week, but I think next week might be the week he comes back.
Yeah, so McLaurin did not practice today, but to your point, it did sound like he was starting to ramp up his activity a little bit. So I would say at least one more week with no McLaurin, and he'll be back on the report again next week. You guys should know the drill by now. With McLaurin out, Deebo Samuel, also a top 12 wide receiver, running routes for the first time in his career, and doing pretty well, especially now that Jaden Daniels is back. It gives them a little bit more upside, and they have a great matchup against Chicago this week, which could be a high-scoring affair as well. So something you want to get in your lineups. Now, outside of Deebo, it's been kind of a mixture of Jalen Lane and a little Luke McCaffrey here and there. Maybe Noah Brown might even return this week. We'll have to see. I'm not touching really any of these other Commanders receivers because there's too much distribution going on for anybody not named Deebo Samuel at